This is chapter 36 of the book Isaiah 53 and the Day of the Lord. Dictated to me by God Himself. I am His righteous servant Moshiach, His prophet like Moses, to deliver 2 covenants, and the righteous servant Elijah, who was taken to heaven. Specifically, only him in the Hebrew Bible, and he returns in the day of the Lord. As the messenger of God, he receives the covenant of Jeremiah 31 from the angel of the covenant that you desire. Because I know that angel. I know him well. And that's what you would expect of Elijah. Elijah, tell us about him. Prove you're Elijah. Well, it's in the book that God dictated His command and direction. Keith, do this, do that. Write this down. Here's the title. Go to the Jewish library. Look up everything you can on Holy Spirit. And then tell me what paragraphs to copy. By pointing my head and my eyes at them. He wouldn't say paragraphs 4, 5, and 6. Paste those in your notebook. And then we'll put it on WordPress. That's how it went. Just as he dictated the Torah to Moses and the rest of the Hebrew Bible to the various prophets, for the most part, the leading characters of every book. That's how he says to think of it, although he said there were times I had to use other people to write as though they were them. So, this is, I have done all 50 of the chapters of this book before. It was about 2 years ago, but they've become just worn down. You know, some of you can't even hardly see me, much less hear me. So we're redoing the entire book. And when you see a post of mine, a stamp as they call it, you'll see chapters in brackets right at the beginning before you even see the title. That means it's one of the new ones. And again, we're on 36 right now. Born, trying to get in the center of the camera here. Born with iniquity. Psalm 51, verse 7. David speaking. King David. Indeed, I was born with iniquity, with sin. My mother conceived me. And I bet that surprises a lot of people. Rashi's commentary with the Chabad translation to English at the Chabad site, I think it's chabad.org. Behold, with iniquity I was formed. Now how could I not sin when the main part of my creation was through coitus, the source of my iniquities? Another explanation, Rashi says, the main part of my creation is from a male and a female, both of whom are full of iniquity. There are many midrashim to this verse, but they do not fit the context of the psalm. Conceive me, Hebrew, an expression of heat. And this is from Genesis chapter 30, verse 38. And they came into heat when they came to drink. It's the same word. In the days of David, men had many wives and many concubines, as is well known with his son Solomon. The iniquity came from his father, Jesse, fathering a child with a woman outside of the tribes, against the laws of God. If Rashi is correct, then all men are born sinners before they ever sin. The sin of his father does not make David a sinner. And he does not bear the sin of his father. That's against God's teachings. He is no one can bear the sins of anybody else. period. That's God's teaching. That includes Jesus Christ. Today, under the halakha, Jewish law, David would be a Gentile if he could not prove his mother was Jewish. This would explain a story creating a Jewish mother for David in the Talmud that you cannot find in the Hebrew Bible. Something made up by men. God says, be careful to observe only that which I enjoin upon you, neither add to it nor take away from it. That's from Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 1. While this applied to the laws of God given to Moses, it is applicable to all the Hebrew Bible. See, most people, Orthodox religious Jews believe that God dictated the Torah to Moses. And I would think the primary reason is, how could he know all this? It's the same reason this is the first proof of who I am that God gave me. 2 books. Because you have to ask yourself, how does he know all these things? Our rabbis and sages from the beginning of time to today do not know. It'd be like one of the Israelites going to Moses and saying, how do we know God talks to you? And Moses could hand in the scroll of Leviticus and say, how do you think I wrote that? It's the same with me. This is an example of the stories and lore of the Talmud at times, taking from the meaning and lessons of God, stories and songs. If God wanted stories that showed all the central men and women as Jewish, he would have had it written that way. Elijah and the captain of the Lord's hosts were not Jewish, they were Gentiles. That's clear. And David cannot be proven to have been Jewish. There's nothing in the Bible that tells us his mother was Jewish. And that's all we would have. David was a savage warrior. When in exile for 1 year and 4 months with the Philistines, he went out and killed enemies of God. And their women also, so no one could tell on him. I suspect that would apply to a teenager that could tell on him. A savage warrior. David would leave no man or woman alive to be brought back to Gath. That's where the Philistines were. For he thought they might tell about us. David did this. Such was his practice as long as he stayed in the territory of the Philistines. That's in 1 Samuel chapter 27, verse 11. David was also a teacher of righteousness, morality, justice, and faithfulness, and a great leader. He is confessing a deep emotional pain in a psalm for all to read. And it is a lesson of the pain of interfaith marriages. For children. A sin he had nothing to do with, that he had to bear all of his life. Okay, the next chapter is chapter 37, Maimonides, Rambam.